hockey. Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
As promised, Judd's Hockey Show back on a Tuesday, and we are at full strength. It is Judd. It is Jesse Pierce, of course, from Bar Down Beauties, and also does a great job covering the Wild for NHL.com. It is AJ Fredrickson, and we come to you to talk about a hockey team that remains sizzling hot. They are a wagon, 5 or 6 points on the road. They lost in overtime to the Blackhawks. Now, this might be, Sports Dad in the old days probably would be disgusted by the first two periods of that game, but they were coming off a trip out west. They actually came back and rallied, dominated the third period, and got a point, lost it in OT. But Jesse Pierce, let's start with you. How much are you now just buying stock in the fact that we are now approaching Thanksgiving? Mm-hmm. And this team continues to look really good. And it does not, it's looking less and less like a fluke to me by the game.
Yeah, I'm all in. It's been a very pleasant surprise because I'll admit I did not expect this because you're looking at it's returning the same team. I was just thinking about that. I'm like, nothing's changed except the health, really, and you're having guys perform. I think truly it was so drilled into them that they need to have a better start, that they need to not get behind the eight ball like many teams are doing. You're noticing the Nashville's falling off. You're noticing these other teams that are really struggling, and that's going to hurt them in the long run. Very few teams are going to have that exceptional run post Thanksgiving. And as the saying goes, at Thanksgiving, if you're in the playoffs, you're probably going to make the playoffs. And right now the Wild have a 100% chance to make the playoffs, according to Money Puck, I believe. No, I'm liking all of it. I like that they're getting their scoring depth. I like that Philip Gustafson continues to look good. Defense, even John Merrill, I know we can be a little hard on that seventh defenseman. He's been playing very serviceable. All in all, there's not too much to gawk at, with the exception of the power play. And I think we all know that is the one gaping issue that the Minnesota Wild have. Their 20.8% efficiency as of right now, which is just mind-boggling because we've talked about that top unit is stacked when you look at it.
What's happened, though?
I
have
no idea.
Got off to a decent start. The penalty kill was awful. The power play got off to a decent start.
Now it's flopped.
And now it's flip-flopped.
Yeah. I couldn't even tell you. They had Monday and today off. They are back at practice tomorrow before they host the Montreal Canadiens on Thursday. But it needs to get figured out quick. Figured out quick. They need to fix it. Fixed quick.
Figured out very quickly?
Both.
All
Both
of those things. Because you're right. Like, it's weird, too, because pre-trip to play the Sharks and the Ducks, the penalty kill was abysmal. And it's like they were, 31st, and they had worked so hard on it. It's like, it's not helping. Then now I know that the Sharks and Ducks aren't good, and I want to get to that for a second, but the penalty kill then, they did their job, and the power play goes on the fritz. It's weird. It also feels like when the power play starts to go on the fritz, it feels like there is this huge tendency to not want to shoot, which is weird because like Matt Boldy is shooting a ton now, and he's been great. He's been basically a star player. So it's very, I don't know if you need a tweak there. I don't know what you need exactly, a personnel tweak, but it is weird. The good news is I do expect them to fix it. To your point, Jesse, there's too much talent there for this just to become the status quo of, I guess the power play is not good. That's not true.
Right. They are 2 for 22 in their past 7 games, which is not great. But yeah, I think a large part of that is too, I remember speaking with Brock Faber post-game before they started that 3-game road trip. I think they hosted the LA Kings and lost. And he had said, he's like, teams are video scouting us now. They know what to expect from that top unit in particular. So, they just have to respond and react. And again, I think that'll be a heavy focus once they return to practice here tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it goes back to the Kings game when they were on the road out there. The Kings, just smothered them. They had multiple chances on the power play. They pressured the puck carrier. The Wild just really had no time to breathe when they got into the zone. And then since then, it's been maybe more the flip-flop where teams have been figuring out their zone entry, and that's been just killing, half of the battle is just getting through the 2 minutes, but if you can take away 40, 50 seconds by just making them try to set up the zone and you don't allow them to even take a shot, that's doing half the job right there. So that's where that scouting is coming to play. But I think you both are right. I'm I'm not concerned because if it was a bad power play with unskilled players, then it's like panic button.
Yeah.
There's just simply too much skill. Something is going to have to change. They'll make a tweak, and I would imagine that 20% gets closer to that ideal 25 here over the next week or two.
I will say this, and this is not just a Wild thing. It's a league-wide thing. The zone entries on power plays now drive me crazy. They're
Same.
all the flipping same, and it's drop pass. Which, by the way, I hate those. But anyway, it's drop pass and then get a guy with a head of steam to get in. Can't we figure out a better way to gain entry? Like
Get off my lawn.
It's like a guy coming down the ice like this. Hey, get out of my way. It's like it doesn't always work. Okay, an impressive thing. The Sharks and Ducks are bad. We all acknowledge that, Jesse. But how many times have we seen this franchise go on a road trip like that and maybe split, maybe lose both, give up points? So to come back from a trip against 3 bad teams with 5 out of 6 points, Jess, I think is impressive, because we would be sitting here ripping them right now, right? Like if they had gone into San Jose and Celebrini beats them, and by the way, that kid is special, but I think that they do get full credit here. Yeah, 3 bad teams, but you got 5 points, and you did not play, perhaps, like we are accustomed to seeing this franchise play at times on a trip like this.
Yeah, they showed the teams respect and then disrespected them on the scoreboard where it mattered. That's what I wanted to see. I needed them to kind of dominate and come out with the 5 goals, right? That's what you needed to see. And that's where it makes it a little bit easier to swallow the overtime loss to Chicago, because given their road trip, given the weariness, that's a viable excuse. It's understandable why they maybe came out a little rocky and they were able to salvage a point. So it's tremendous. I think that's another reason that it feels safe to believe in this team. They're able to win in different fashions each and every night. Some nights it's more defensively, some nights it's more offensively powered. And to be able to do that fairly consistently throughout the start of the season here is very promising. I mean, it's just exciting to watch. It's good to watch, and has us Minnesota fans, I think, holding our breath still a little bit. But now it's it's good. It's good, guys.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I know, and it looks legit, Age. It looks legit. Like they're doing a lot of things that are sustainable.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe this is the unpopular opinion, but I think it's fair to label, what was it, Sunday nights or whatever, the Blackhawks game, I think it was Sunday night. I think it's fair to say that that's a bad loss, but not be too critical about it, because they've had so few of those types of losses. Obviously, the Flyers was bad. But this one, it's just, I know you're at the end of your road trip and you're probably fatigued, but I think that says that you've raised the bar a little bit to where even a tired Wild squad, when healthy, is still probably better than what the Blackhawks put on the ice most of the night. And then the overtime just didn't really do it for me, just because it felt very lackadaisical. And then, we're going to give the Blackhawks a chance. But they have been showing you Jesse, I want to say, I love that. I've never heard that before, but respecting them by dominating them.
Because I thought the same thing. I pointed at you. I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
This team for years, I feel like they have raised or lowered their level of play based on the opposition. Play Minnesota Wild hockey.
Correct.
And if that's better than the opposition, guess what? That's great, because that means you're taking them seriously. That means you're going out there and you're not, from opening puck drop, you're putting your best foot forward, and you're not snoozing into the second period. And it's like, all right, guys, let's wake up. We only have 4 shots on Dave Rittich. Let's go out there and actually try. They've been really showing a lot of consistently good hockey from the jump, and that's, I think, been the biggest key so far.
I agree. I think my next biggest point, the biggest thing you have to keep an eye on, how are they going to fare against Central teams? You haven't seen a lot of them yet. I mean, we know how atrocious it was last year, not beating Colorado, not beating Dallas, and understandably, Minnesota was terrible, and those teams, for lack of a better word, were not. But you have Dallas coming up. You've got St. Louis coming up. It's still not Central Division heavy, but you need to come out and really compete. Dallas is good, and it's not going to be an easy game. So that one I have circled just to see what that looks like for them, because that is a big game. And if Minnesota can hold their own, whether they win or lose, I just want to see a good competitive game. It'd be very interesting to mark where they're at then at the year. A good measuring stick, if you will.
Saturday night, right?
Saturday night.
Dallas Stars, hate that team. Hate those Stars. The one thing I don't hate, I'm talking to you, Grill Masters. I don't hate Stoke barbecue pellets a company based and operated right here in our great state. Stoked is the premium pellet that cooks anything that you throw on the grill or smoker to delicious perfection. Stoked covers all of the barbecue bases. I'm talking fish, beef, pork. I could go down the entire line. Stoked gives you a flavorful yet mellow oakwood cooked taste to any grilled or smoked foods. Stoked virtually eliminates all those flameouts that can be such a pain. Stoked barbecue pellets, 50 count fire starter buckets, 4 count fire starter bags. The barbecue caddy, I've showed you that before. It's outstanding. Again, check out Stoked, available in all 22 Fratelloni's hardware and garden stores. Stoked barbecue pellets. Don't go with the big guys, go with Stoked, available at all 22 of the Fratelloni's hardware and garden stores. An interesting story today. Greg Wyshynski, the former Puck Daddy on ESPN.com. Don't know if you guys saw this, but the first month in, he writes, "We've pulled a wide selection of Professional Hockey Writers Association voters anonymously to get a sense of where the wind is blowing for current leaders in all of the award categories. The Hart Trophy, the leader right now, Kirill Kaprizov. Welcome to the party here." Kirill Wyshynski writes, "Jesse, it's not even close. Kaprizov captured 78% of the first place votes from our panel, as they viewed the dynamic winger as the engine behind the Wild's impressive 10, 2, and 3 start. Nikita Kucherov and Nathan McKinnon of the Lightning and Avalanche, respectively, are the other finalists." I'm glad to see, and I know it's, early on, it's a month in, Jess, but I'm glad to see that Kirill Kaprizov is getting the league-wide attention that he so richly deserves for his play thus far.
Yeah, we'll actually have Wish on Bar Down Beauties next week as a
Oh,
result
nice.
from this article.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's nice to
Nice.
get some of that national attention. My favorite quote from that quote or article, especially about Kaprizov and the Hart, was, "Making the Minnesota Wild exciting is some real hero stuff," which,
not wrong.
it's not wrong. I love it. No, I mean, again, locally here in Minnesota, we've known it. We've seen that specialness brewing, and now he's not just that superstar. He is an elite superstar. He deserves to be in that conversation with Kucherov, with Nathan McKinnon, with the Austin Matthews, the Connor McDavids, right? I mean, it's so deserved. I absolutely love it. And I think without question, the Minnesota Wild get into the playoffs, he absolutely is getting votes for the Hart Trophy. It would be irresponsible to not have his name in there and getting votes, frankly. I mean, heck, he's the second leading points leader right now with 28. I mean, you can't ignore what he's able to do. And luckily this year, I go back to it, he's getting help and he's getting support too. So it's not even just him. That's what's going to make the Minnesota Wild successful. Is not only do you have Kirill going on all cylinders, but as you'd mentioned, Judd, Matt Boldy, you've got Zuki even going, you've got the back end going as well. It's pretty exciting to see, and it's just a little nerve-wracking now that Kaprizov is so elevated, because plenty of other teams are like, we really like this kid too now, right?
God.
Sorry, guys. I know.
July
I know.
1st, 2025. Hold on to your hats, kids.
Oh, boy. That's gonna be fun.
Because, you don't know.
You don't know.
I think I know. I think he'll want to stay here, but we don't know people.
Right?
Yeah. It's about time. No, you're fine. It's about time, I think, that a guy has gotten this type of recognition. And maybe this is admittedly like Minnesota bias, but I mean, hey, this is a Minnesota Wild-based show. I'm going to probably have some bias there, but it feels like in past years, maybe somebody should be getting recognition for like a Norris Trophy. I feel like it's just this weird, it's shrouded over Minnesota. If that player was in a market like New York or in a market like Toronto, hey, absolutely, they're going to garner a lot more votes. But I think it says just how good and how important he's been to get all of that recognition. I think I'm looking at it now. It's about 78% of the ballots that were turned in for this were for Kirill Kaprizov to get that first place vote. That just is another step of how good he's been. If you're getting that type of recognition playing for this Minnesota Wild team, I feel like says you are a bona fide superstar. He's finally ascending into that. I think we've known it here for the past couple of years. He's had this potential, but it's great that now the national media is really taking notice to that elite superstar play.
Well, and I tweeted it out, I think, right when Kirill came in at that first glimpse, and then going back to, what was that, 21, and even that 22 season when fans got to see what they needed to see in person. But I had said, yes, Kirill Kaprizov is the first superstar since Marian Gaborik. except he's better. Like he is just hands down better than Gabby too, right? I mean,
100%.
and Gabrick did a lot of really special, incredible things here. And Gabrick was a very, very good hockey player, albeit injury prone, whereas Kirill is even better than that. So that's what it's so exciting to see it all come to fruition and unfold in front of our eyes here.
I think Gabrick was a star.
Yeah.
I think Kirill's a superstar.
Right.
Like I think Boldy's ascending to star status, but I mean there's a finite amount of superstars, and Kaprizov is one. Now, to be honest with you, if this team continues to go in the direction that they're going, the next step is going to be, and not just Kirill, but the entire team in the springtime, right? Because Kirill's had some bad playoffs, had at least one really good one. But, if the supporting cast is as complete as it potentially looks, Jesse, and you get to springtime, and now you've got two lines. And by the way, too, shout out John Hines in Chicago. I mean, you manipulated a point from that game, and you deserve credit. But it's crunch time now. What do? You put Boldy in between Kaprizov and Zuccarello, and before that, you put Eriksson Ek back on the Boldy and Kaprizov line. So, things like that, I absolutely love. But yeah, the next question is, if this team can continue on this track, what can they do in the spring? Because I feel like they're never going to be taken seriously until they get to that step. But that doesn't mean that they're not a really pleasant surprise that look like they're playing a sustainable style right now.
I mean, it does. It makes you wonder, Bill Guerin, again, a guy that's always going to tinker and do things to make this team better. So even come that trade deadline, is there something that he sees, that missing piece maybe on the third line or the fourth line, that he is able to maneuver and get something in return for? Or is it pushing a defenseman out? I know I said John Merrill is a very good defense. He's very decent this year. He's fine. I have no problem with John Merrill getting into the lineup at a rotation basis. But maybe he's worth something to somebody and maybe you get something back. I don't know. So that'll be very curious. But yeah, I think as long as everybody continues this rolling, and I love that you said that, Judd, about Chicago, because I thought the same thing. We've talked about it. John Hines is a reactionary coach, and I freaking love it. I love that he is willing to do that. And I think the players have all bought into that system and that scenario too. And he'll go back to the lines that work to start the game off, and if they don't work, he isn't afraid to change them up. So I think in general, the Minnesota Wild have put themselves in a very good position heading into the spring, obviously heading into the end of this year, even with some big tests on the horizon. But I'm excited for the first time in quite some time. I'm excited to be covering this Minnesota Wild team.
Okay, so here's the big question, and I think obviously the answer right now is yes. But as I think this through, and the sustainability, and again, I think there's a lot of things, like the lines are doing their job. Like the fourth line on Sunday played well, and I guess Trenin's a fourth line guy, but okay, he's that. So here's the one thing: how much do you trust the goaltending right now, into the future? If there's anything about, okay, we're starting to go down the path of this team's playing really well, and Gustafsson's been outstanding thus far. Do you fully trust it, or if this was a 0 to 100% meter, Jesse, where's your trust right now in the goaltending? So Gus as well as Fleury as a whole.
As a whole, since it's together as a tandem, I'll go down to 80%. But right now, Gustafsson hasn't really given me any reason to doubt him. And I do believe he is going to be playing about 80% of these games. And I think Marc-Andre Fleury is just fine with that. And as long as Fleury can come in and hold his own when he's called upon on those back-to-back nights or on, particularly tough games, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with riding Gus right now. Gus looks good. There's very few instances where I can think of where I've been worried about his rebound control or where I've been worried about him seeing and tracking the puck. I know we talked about that last week. It's the tracking that he's doing. He's just very much on point and on his game. So I'd say 80% only because the tandem worries me a little bit, because Gus is going to have to come out right now. And I don't know if that affects Marc-Andre's ability to step in as needed too. So I'm pretty confident though, which is nice. We like confidence in goaltenders. We love it. It's great.
You ordinarily hate him till last year when you liked him, and then they
but it was tough love. It was tough love because look, he showed up to camp ready to go.
Yeah. Age.
Here's my maybe question for you both. As the season goes on, I don't expect this to affect him too much, impact him too much, because it's Marc-Andre Fleury. But do you think there's going to be that realization at a certain point that just it hits him? I've got 4 games left. I've got X amount of games left. like, let's say things go for the worse or like they're coming down the stretch. It's like, hey, I'm going to have one more game in, like, when do they, I guess they already went to Montreal, didn't they? Or no?
No.
No, not yet.
Montreal
think
comes
so.
here first.
And he'll play that game.
He'll play it.
Yeah. But something along those lines. Do you think the emotional impact of realizing, hey, you know, the road's coming to an end at some point here pretty soon, does that impact his play at all? I understand he is one of the best goaltenders of all time. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's a person at the end of the day. That's like, he's been playing this level of hockey for what now? 13, 14, 15 years. And he's been doing it since, juniors and at the higher levels in Canada. Like at a certain point, you got to realize, hey, this is going to come to an end. I just am worried that emotionally he might get in his head about that type of thing. And, you know, I'm not saying that I'm going to judge him for it, because it's a big monumental thing in his life. But in terms of how it's going to impact his play, I'm not concerned, but it is on my radar.
I'm not
Yeah,
concerned.
No.
Yeah, and
I'm not
if
too
I'm
concerned.
overthinking it, let me
His
know.
whole thing
But
in Pittsburgh, I loved. I mean, the Pittsburgh thing. Like, I think he's very at peace with this. I don't think he's being forced to do it. I think that Bill Guerin, to a fault, probably asked him to come back, which, by the way, I'm not complaining about, because it's a joy to watch the guy play and a privilege. But I thought the thing in Pittsburgh really spoke to where his head is at right now. And I also think that he gets credit. You know, the team had to urge him to bring his wife and kids there for the game in Pittsburgh, because he's like, I do. And he said, I don't want tributes. He also said in Pittsburgh, when they did that really nice montage, I think after the first stoppage of play, Jess, that he basically just stared straight ahead. He didn't want the applause too much. So anyway, I'm not concerned about that.
okay.
Yeah, I think, but I mean, it's a fair point, right? Because we're all human, we're all emotional, and I think Marc-Andre does get emotional. I think the tears caught up with him. He jokes with me all the time. Ever since he's had kids, all of a sudden he has feelings again. He can't understand what's going on, And I think that game in Montreal, which is January 30th, will be equally as emotional with family and friends there. But still, he's such a pro, and I think the reason he made the announcement last year was to avoid any extra feelings and emotions. He was able to,
Right.
as you said, Judd, maybe come to peace a little bit with it. Yes, it'll probably be weird once that finale is actually there, but hopefully by then you're in the playoffs. I think that's equally as important to Marc-Andre Fleury. It's never been about him. That's what makes him such a tremendous person, right? It's about the team, and if he's been able to help the team accomplish what they need to. So I think that will always win out in the forefront of his mind, despite the emotions that we probably all feel, because I know every time I'm like, oh, this has got to be so cool for him, and he's probably like, we're moving on.
Yeah. And what, 3 cups? Like, he just needs a fight and a goal, and he'll be all set.
Yeah.
Preferably a fight. I don't care about his
Do you
goal.
think he makes the Four Nations team for Canada? I mean, their goalies aren't great, but it's
No,
like
they're
that'd be
not.
a nice little
Craig-
thing to do for
'Cause
them,
who-
right?
who's
Jordan
their best
Binnington.
options?
Jordan
Binnington
Binnington might
Binnington
make
will be
it.
their starter.
Yeah.
Binnington, Skinner, and
I don't
who
think he
else?
does, but it's an interesting thought.
Right?
I'd sure like to take him. Like, I'd love to
just
have
be
him
nice
there.
to him.
I don't think he will, but and
Give that man whatever he wants.
I've dismissed
Yes.
it, like, as far as a possibility, but now that you broach it, he'd be a nice guy to have, like, on your staff, if nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, he's such a pro's pro, but no, I don't think he does.
Same.
But you're right, the goaltending options, and what's weird is the goaltending options for the U.S. are
So good.
outstanding.
So good.
And then Boldy's going to make the team, I think. Faber is probably going to make the team.
Boldy's gonna have a tough go. I mean, Team USA, the options look pretty good, right? I mean,
Yeah, but
they've
his
got
GM.
some solid.
But his
It
GM
doesn't matter that I
is the
can't
US.
play
And the-
favorites.
But also the way he's been playing, I feel like he's almost
He
earning.
deserves it.
Yeah.
Oh, no
if
question.
if it was last season, maybe it's,
Well-
then we'd be leaning on Bill Guerin, but I think his play is putting him in the conversation well enough to where nobody's going to blink an eye.
And don't forget, too, he's going to get brownie points because he went to the World Championships and played and was great.
Yeah.
Like, I think if I recall correctly, Guerin, or I think it was Guerin, said something along the lines of, oh, yeah, we are monitoring who goes. Like the World Championships, you just, non-playoff team or your playoffs end and you fly to Europe. I mean,
Right.
that takes a sacrifice. So I think the fact that Boldy made that is going to help his cause. But age is right. Like, it's competitive, but right now, Faber and Boldy, I think they've earned it.
Yeah.
Brock Faber's been phenomenal. I mean, he's a minutes-eating monster who wears glasses. Sort of odd. Hey,
As he puts them on.
I want to close. Well, I'm 55. I want to close with one more thing. But before I do that, I want to talk about our Score North Roku giveaway right now on the Score North app. You can win a 75-inch Roku Pro Series Smart TV and wall mount. Just use the Score North app to register, kick off and kick back, or drop the puck. With a new TV this holiday season from Roku, all from the best seat in the house, your couch. That's on the Score North app under Listener Rewards. All right, before we go, shout out to two kids that I saw lead the Gophers to an NCAA championship on the New Hampshire campus in 2003 or 4. So Chrissy Wendell, Natalie Darwitz. I don't think we could talk enough about the fact that those two unbelievable players went into the Hockey Hall of Fame. The Hockey Hall of Fame. Not the one here, the big one in Toronto. Congratulations, Jesse. I think that this is so cool. Because, I mean, this is a huge deal. And watching them back then, covering that tournament, I think they played the championship game against Harvard. I knew that they were great players, but I mean, let's now, 20 plus years past that, let's give them their due. I mean, they helped basically pave the way for where the women's game is at, which is a great place right now. Without the Darwitzes and Wendells of the world, I don't know that the game gets there. So shout out. I just think it is an awesome, awesome thing. And there's a lot of people not in that hall who could be. So don't take this as some type of lightly, nice award. It's a phenomenal honor, in my opinion.
I mean, you're going in with Pavel Datsuk and you're going in with JR, right? I mean, like you're in good company just in your class alone. But you join the Cami Granados, you join the Angela Ruggierios. Just absolute trailblazers. And I mean, they still hold records here in Minnesota at the high school level and at the college level, ones that'll probably never be touched. And they didn't have the women's opportunities that the girls do now. There were no girls teams. There wasn't a state high school tournament for the girls. There wasn't a professional women's team or a league. And they did it all despite that. I mean, Natalie was only 15 years old when she joined Team USA and she went on to captain it 3 times. I mean, it's insane. And I love in her induction speech, Natalie had mentioned, I wouldn't be here without Chrissy. Chrissy was a little bit older, but they did all of this together, and to have them both products of Minnesota just reiterates not only are we great at producing very good talent on the men's side, but the women's side, it's a hockey hotbed. You won't find better than Minnesota because the opportunities are endless and it's tremendous. So yeah, hats off to both of them. So well deserved, so exciting, and can't wait to see what's next for them. I love that they got to bring the kids too. Of course, as a mom, I think that's always so special. Yeah. But like, just how awesome. Cool and badass is it to be like, hey kids, I'm in the Hall of Fame, and the kids, I'm sure, just saw pools
Johnny
and
Poole,
limos and
poor
cool
Johnny
stuff.
Poole sitting there like, hey, I played a couple games for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I was like, Chrissy will always be the better hockey player. She'll always be the better hockey
Chrissy,
player.
No doubt. Darwitz was phenomenal and could score goals and had a great shot.
Yeah.
Chrissy's one of the most talented players overall I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The toe drag, her ability. I mean, this kid then, woman now, played in the Little League World Series as a catcher.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous. And as a kid, she played with boys in hockey and was great. Yeah. So, like, Darwitz, fantastic. I still recall, I want to say she was, I was at the Star Tribune in the 90s when she was like in 7th or 8th grade in Egan, and Darwitz was scoring, a ridiculous amount of goals.
Yeah.
But the Wendell, the completeness of that game and her abilities and athletic, I mean, both of them. But yeah, it's a great story. It's a fantastic story. And the Frost now, the media days in a couple of days, and then they start first part
Thursday,
of December.
The same day as the Minnesota Wild game day. So yes.
Oh, that's gonna be a long day for Jesse Pierce.
It's gonna be a long day for Jesse Pierce. Be at the rink all day.
Are we asking about what happened? Are we past last year yet, or are we
So
still curious?
I had the honor to actually host a season ticket event for the Frost last night, in which we introduced Melissa Caruso, the new general manager, and they did address it, as far as how do you move forward when there seems to be a fracture within the team, and it's Melissa kind of admitted it's unfair to her. It's not her fault. She's coming in to fill this
No.
role. She didn't, but I think those messages get mixed a little bit. So they did
Sure.
try to address it in a very politically way, but the fans were crazy out there. I mean, we were at a bar of their own and they were having a great time. So I think a lot of people are slowly but surely moving through it because you have to. I mean, the team is still going out there to defend a cup. They're going to be, great camp starts. It's, you got to kind of turn the page. It's unfortunate. You wish it was more transparent. We wish that we maybe were able to learn a little bit more, but again, that wasn't necessarily the Minnesota team's decision. That was the league's decision.
And you're going to be shocked by what I say next. I know you're going to be absolutely floored, but the one person that I have questions about is the man, Ken Klee. Like that's what I want to know, because the GM came in. That's not her fault. Like, she was hired. Good for her. Take the job. But like, I would like to know if this was a Ken Klee Darwitz problem, if this was the players and Darwitz, but the GM and players, in my humble opinion, and Jess, you have covered this sport for a long time. It's not often that the GM and players have like huge problems, like contractually, but the GM's not exactly going in the locker room. So I know you're shocked by this, but if I'm going to point a finger and say what happened, it's going to be at the guy.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think unfortunately we'll never get the truth. There's always going to be her side, his side, and the truth right in the middle. And I think we're going to have to bite our tongues and accept it for what it is. Again, I think the
I
league.
want to bite my tongue. I want answers.
You got Ken
Klee, I want answers. Ken, you played in the league. I want
you can
answers.
ask him the tough questions
Yeah.
after the first game this time around. Then I don't have to. I'll sit back and let
Jesse
you do
wasn't
the
even
work.
working after the first game. Next thing I know, she's asking 15 questions.
Well, they needed to fix the
How about your
power play.
F3? What the hell is up with your F3?
I'm just picturing like a 6-1 win over the Boston Fleet. Everybody's slapping hands, patting backs. All right, first question. You up front. Yeah, can you talk about in the off season? Judd, come
What
on.
happened? I'm just curious about what's going on here. By
And
the
it's
way,
a
they
fair
did-
question. It is. It's. I think
yeah.
that's where the league. And again, I don't blame Minnesota for this because I think it all comes down from the league. I think the league needs to do a better job at paying attention to the tone of the environment that they're in. They did congratulate the Hall of Fame class with Natalie's picture nice and bright and big on their social media, and I'm like, that feels very tone deaf to do that as a league. I think you maybe could have sat that one out.
Yeah, well, eventually, I would hope that the teams are going to be sold off to groups that own them, so like you can pay all of your attention to your team. But until then, all right. And by the way, the Frost jerseys, I love them. Great jerseys. They are great. In faat, I would like one. Jesse, I don't know if you got some
yeah.
leads. Double
Yeah.
XL, please.
know people.
But I would
I
love.
got
I
you.
would wear it on the show. Frost, great look.
Love it.
Better than, may I say, the Minnesota Wild. You're a good team, but I still hate your logo, and your name is not much better. That's it for me. Judd, Jesse, AJ. We will see you next week. More JHS.